What am I seeing? So these were these New York Times Siena College polls that came out over the weekend. And look, this is Democrat versus Trump margin. This is May, Biden versus Trump. You see plenty of red on this side of your screen, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Of course, that quote-unquote blue wall. This was back in May. You saw Trump up by 3, Trump up by 1 in Wisconsin, Biden up by a single point in Michigan. The trend line here is what's so important. So let's jump ahead from May to August. We go from some red on this side of the screen. Look at all this blue on this side of the screen. Pennsylvania, Harris by 4. Wisconsin, Harris by 4. Michigan, Harris by 4. So you're seeing those comments on Trump on social media kind of going bananas, and you're wondering why. It's because he's looking at polling data like this, which shows clear momentum from Donald Trump to Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's got out of the race. I'll note still no clear leader up here, but you would much rather be Kamala Harris up by 4 within the margin of error than Joe Biden down by 3 in Pennsylvania, down 1 in Wisconsin, and only up by 1 in Michigan within the margin of error. These are 3 to 5 point movements towards the Democratic ticket. Clear momentum, and it's clearly angering Donald Trump.
But take us inside the numbers. Who is Harris appealing to that Joe Biden was not when we had these numbers?
Yeah, so, okay. Is it that Harris is getting Republican voters? No. It's not that she's getting Donald Trump voters from 2020. What is she doing? Number one, she's coalescing the Democratic base. So look, in Biden this spring, he was getting only 90% of the voters who voted for him back in 2020. Look at it now. What do we see? We see Kamala Harris is getting 93% of those voters. So we see that momentum. The other thing that we see is those untraditional voters. Those voters, there's all this talk that Donald Trump was going to get these voters off the sidelines and get them to vote for him who didn't vote in 2020. Back in the spring, look at that. Joe Biden was only getting 28% of the 2020 non-voters. Look at where Kamala Harris is now. She's getting 43% of those voters, a 15-point jump. So Kamala Harris is doing 2 things here. Number one, she's getting more of those untraditional voters. And number 2, she's coalescing that Democratic base.
Are you seeing signs in other polling of the Harris momentum as well?
Yeah, okay. So if it's just one poll, I'm not that interested. But take a look here. This is among those certain to vote. This is the Democrat versus Trump in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. This is an Ipsos poll that came out last week. Look at this, the June margin. Biden versus Trump. We see Trump was up by 2, very similar to what we saw in those New York Times Siena College polls. Look at where we are now in this August margin. Look at that, +2 for Harris. So again, a 4-point movement towards Harris, again within the margin of error. And the last thing I'll note, look at this. If Harris just wins up in the Great Lakes, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, she can lose Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia, and she gets to exactly 270 electoral votes.
All right, so momentum it is today.
Momentum it is.